What's up, you guys? Jeff Cohn here with another episode of the Team Building Podcast, where we interview top team leaders, broker owners, and thought leaders across the entire country. I have a very special couple coming on today, Miss Dr. Sheri Fluellen and JP Fluellen, who have both just recently attended our team building workshop in Omaha. Sheri's been trying to get on the podcast for a couple of months now. We've had some scheduling conflicts, but they are here with us today. I'm so excited to get into this topic, and so should you be for our audience members that are listening and or watching. Welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So excited to finally make this happen.
Yeah, for sure. So we were talking offline about how it's challenging. You know, we're going into 2021 and we're setting our goals and we're thinking about what we want to accomplish and how much money we want to generate and the life we want to live. And more often than not, I feel like people spend about 90% of that time, that mental energy planning, focused on their business. And they don't spend a lot of it focused on the things they're actually wanting to do with the money they generate from their business. And I know you and JP have a very successful team in Cheyenne. I know you guys have scaled really well within the EXP network. And I'm sure things haven't always been easy as you've been married, I think over 20 years, hasn't it been?
Yep. Over 20 years.
Yep.
Stealing a little of your thunder. I just remember you sharing that with me. So Why don't we get into this first and foremost? Everyone listening, you know, most people are running a successful business or aspiring to run a successful business. And this is the team building podcast. But today, I don't want the focus to be about how to build successful businesses within like the actual functionality of the business. I want to talk about how to sustain a successful life, a successful marriage, being a successful mother or father or friend or daughter or brother, or whatever the case might be, while building a successful business. Because I think a lot of people believe the myth that to be successful, you have to sacrifice everything, including your health and spirituality and hobbies, et cetera, et cetera. And you don't.
Yeah.
So share with the audience, you know, where you guys came from, where you are today, and then we can maybe talk about some situations that have been challenging for you guys and how you were able to overcome that.
Yeah, so I'll just give a quick synopsis of my background. So I'm a psychologist and as well as a high performance coach. And so over the past, about 10 years ago, I started a practice. So I had my own business and I grew that and scaled that and had my own team that I was building, team building.
Nice.
Nice. And so that happened over a period of 10 years. Then I got to the point where I realized it just wasn't feeding me emotionally the way I wanted it to. And so I sold that practice. And then JP, meanwhile, was building his own real estate business and team. And so we now are, you know, working on cohesively as much as possible, building that together. And so that's kind of been the journey. We started separate and now we're starting to come together. Okay.
And prior, your practice that you're referring to, Sheri, is your more like mental health practice, life coaching. Would that be like a psychiatrist or a therapist, or what would you have called yourself?
Yes. So I'm a psychologist, a licensed psychologist. And yes, I had a traditional mental health practice. We had about 15 therapists at the peak, you know, marriage counselors, social workers, and that sort of thing. And so if somebody was depressed or had PTSD, they would come see me.
Okay. And so JP, tell us about your real estate business really quick. What did that look like when it started? What's it look like today? And then we'll talk about how you marry those two.
Yeah. So I started in 2010. In 2015, I made several attempts to start a real estate team, and the brokerage I was at that time, just the structure didn't work. So I had to switch brokerages. Because I felt like I'd outgrown, because I was at a brokerage that had about 80 agents, and I worked myself up to the top 3 agents in the company. Wow. And so you get to a certain point where you're like, I don't know what's left in my real estate career. And of course, I stumble across the team building podcast, and it opened up all these doors for me.
I'm sorry.
I know. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that. So now you started getting all my wheels turning. And of course, so I go to my brokerage and I'm like, here's what I want to do. Here's what needs to happen in order for me to build a real estate team. I don't feel like I want to own a brokerage at this point. And so I mentioned the word teams, and they just lost their minds because they didn't know what a team was. And they're like, that's an unauthorized brokerage.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly. Wow. And so it got to the point where I'm like, okay, I got to figure out something else. And we didn't have any other options at the time other than EXP that was conducive for teams.
Yep.
So I just jumped ship, went over to EXP, built a team.
What year was that?
Just 2 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that was pretty recent. It's really interesting. Just taking a quick pause here. I have a quote that I love to stand behind, and I say it all the time. And there's these moments like this where I like to share it. And it's simple. True leaders serve their followers by giving them the ability and enabling them, empowering them, motivating them to become just like them. But the traditional broker, if you want to know if it's traditional, we say don't be basic, be elite. The traditional brokerage does not give you the model to become a broker within the brokerage, which is essentially the team model. They actually don't want that to happen because they lose leverage and they lose the ability to then send you to the ancillary businesses that are actually their major money makers. So you broke away. Congratulations as one of the top 3 agents in your office. So that was great. And you joined EXP, which is an awesome virtual model. And you can have a physical office if you want. So talk to us about the last 2 years and what that looks like.
Yeah. So I started my team November of 2018. We scaled out. I basically had 4 agents jump onto my team almost immediately.
Did any of them come from the last brokerage?
One of them did.
Okay.
And then we recruited another one that was already at EXP. They just wanted to be part of a team. And then we recruited 2 brand new agents like right away. So within the first 4 months, we were cranking pretty well. Mm-hmm. We ended that first year, 113 transactions for 34 million in production.
And that's 18.
And that was 2018 and to the end of 2019.
Okay.
That first 12 months. And then this year, we're going to end the year at about 150 transactions for about 46 million.
Oh, that's great growth. That's a 25% growth. Can't ask for much more than that.
No.
So what would you attribute that growth to?
Just treating your real estate business as a business, mm-hmm. and realizing that there are other options than being a solo agent. And having good systems in place, and part of those systems were joining ERS and helping us be very focused and organized, and that there are different aspects to your business that you might not be thinking about, like mm-hmm. Coaching, training, accountability, having being organized with that. Because I think most realtors, their biggest problems in their business is just not knowing what categories to be focusing on, because all they're focusing on is getting leads and selling houses, and and they just get confused, and they're like, it's just this like garbled mess. And if you're part of the disc profile and you're a high D and a high I, you're not very organized, and you need somebody in your life to be that way.
So JP, you're the high DI. Sheri, you have a lot of I too. I'd get you like an IS probably.
I am slightly higher than middle on I, but honestly, I'm the biggest C, and then just a little bit below that is an S. So we are almost polar opposites in our personality.
Yep. And that's the same relationship I have with my wife. And it's interesting. One of my first hires, my leverage position was Kevin, who you got to meet at the workshops the last 2 times. And he came on as an operations manager, and he's a 99S, 99C. And I'm a 99D, 99I. So if you guys don't know what we're talking about, we've lost you. If you haven't taken the DISC personality test, we don't get anything for promoting this. I actually think I'll send you, I think it's still on the Tony Robbins website, I believe, for free. Just Google DISC assessment and DISC yourself, and then DISC your significant other, DISC your kids, DISC your parents. It's really fun. It takes 10 minutes, but it kind of categorizes people into 4 dominant traits and a secondary trait, but it gives you your natural state, like what you are naturally, and then what you are, I'd call it pretend. I don't know what they call it on there, but what you are, what you typically act like when you're out and about in front of other people. And it'll talk to you about how to interact with people. So a lot of us use that personality review or assessment to, number 1, know how to interact with people within the office. And then number 2, know how to interact with our clients. And it helps you kind of just functionally know what role you play. So really quick with being the DI, JP, and then we'll kind of talk into how you two married in both different senses. What role do you play within your team right now? And then what role do you want to play within your team looking forward?
So right now, I'm playing the Rainmaker, team leader.
Rock star on a stage.
Yes.
And he actually enjoys being the rock star, both figuratively and literally. So it's going to be hard to rip him out of that role.
Yep. We get a lot of validity from that role, and it makes us feel good about ourselves. And typically high eyes like the pat on the back and like words of affirmation. Hey, JP, you're doing such a great job. And your hat looks really cool. Your beard looks great. I love your sweater. You have a beautiful wife. Your house is amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
So JP, how do we get you out of the rainmaker role and more into the 7th level CEO role and let other people be the rock stars?
So, and I've had actually taken some steps towards that. So like from a lead gen perspective, so we do like Zillow and, all the other Facebook and all that stuff. And I've given 100% of those leads to my agents.
Okay, good.
So I don't take on any of that stuff. My biggest issue is I have some of my own leads I'm working with that, are a little bit more difficult to hand off to the team. So I wouldn't really be able to do that very easily.
No one else could ever work those leads.
I know.
JP
right?
is the only one. So for our listeners right now, who is guilty? Raise your hand. You're in the car. You're working out the gym. Just put your hand in the air. No one else could work that lead. You're the only one that can convert them. It's a tough couple, or it's $1 million buyer or seller. There's no way you're handing it off to someone else. That would be impossible. So I was in that boat in 2014, 6 years ago. I was still servicing sellers. In 2011, I actually retired from buyers because buyers are nightmares. And I just referred them off to other people at a 50% referral fee. And my goal was just double the buyer leads that I generated from my sphere and give them off to the agents, and I'll make the same amount of money. It's that simple, people. So refer these people off on the listing side as well. And you don't have to refer it off at 50%. You can charge 75%. You can pay somebody a salary. There's no rule that it has to be a 50-50 split. It shouldn't be a 50-50 if you're giving them teed up leads, but I get it. I have taken deals in the last 12 months that were close family friends, and I felt like I should be the one representing them, but I still didn't do all of the administrative work, and I'm sure you're not doing the administrative side either. All right, let's talk about the marriage. Let's first talk about your actual marriage. So where you guys met and what this experience has been like. What I want to get into is some of the raw, challenging times in your guys' relationship. Because I know if it's anything like my marriage, I've been married 17 years. I'm a DI. She's an SC as well, just like Kevin, 99S, 99C. And we have differed on everything. Like literally pick a topic. We have opposite positions on every topic. I mean, and
are you going to have any more kids, or are you done having kids?
Exactly. She's having more. I'm done.
How is that working out for you?
Exactly. So, let's start in the beginning. Where'd you guys meet? What's your story? Really quick.
So we actually met at church.
Okay.
We were in youth group together.
Yeah.
What year?
16, she was 14.
Oh, like early 90s.
Dang.
I know.
Yeah. What's up, Cheyenne?
Well, it wasn't in Wyoming. We've only been in Wyoming about 14 years.
Where was it?
Frozen north of North Dakota.
What's frozen north?
Well, North Dakota is like.
Is there a city called Frozen?
No,
No.
But it should be.
Yes.
You really need to let it go.
Some rando city. They don't even want to reference it on the show. That's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
So you fall in love in youth group. You end up marrying each other. When do you guys realize how different you are? Like, when do you actually self-confront and you're like, holy cow, we're like the opposite?
Oh, no,
College.
it was way before college.
Well, okay, maybe.
Sheri noticed.
It's her story. It's not mine.
Her truth.
I mean, part of what attracted me to him, and this is often what I've done marital counseling for years and years and years, and I've got a master's in marriage and family therapy. So I love talking to couples and helping them through stuff.
Ooh, you're getting talked to today.
I know.
Welcome to Dr. Jeff Cohn's podcast. Bring it.
Yeah. And what's interesting is often the opposites attract initially. It's the like, ooh, it's exciting and new. But then once the relationship settles in, it's those differences that then start becoming irritating.
In the beginning, and I've listened to a lot of podcasts on relationships, and I've read books on this, and I've been to counseling myself. I literally by myself and with my spouse, and been to marriage retreats. So I've got a little experience on this topic, and I'm sure our listeners will find this very interesting because I don't go super personal very often. In the beginning, what was one of the stories, maybe defining moments, Sheri, where you like could not live with JP? You were like, I cannot stay with this man. And I know we all in our relationships have this moment, especially people that are such polar opposites. I know I have stories I can share as well. But for you guys, what was one of your first experiences where you're like, I don't know if I can do this? Okay.
So for me, because that instantly came to mind. So for me, this young, immature man that I was attracted to because he was very gregarious and everybody loved him. But he was super flirty.
Ooh.
And I was super insecure.
Mm-hmm.
And so he triggered my insecurity buttons all the time. And, I'll even out him and say that there was this one girl that he kind of liked. And so he was like, well, can I date her on the week and then you on the weekend?
Nice, JP.
Yeah, that was not a smart move.
So what things not to do? Hopefully we have really young people on the show.
Right.
I've learned, don't tell your wife who you have a crush on. Don't tell your wife who's pretty. Just don't talk about it. Just keep that off the list, right?
Yeah, exactly. So,
all right. So you start recognize this about yourself. And so you realize, oh my gosh, I have a lot of work to do. I'm super insecure and I need to probably be open enough with my spouse, which is not easy, to share with them some of the challenges that I feel like I'm experiencing. And maybe we can figure this whole thing out together. And I know I've met JP several times. He's still super flirty. He's still super immature, just like me. He likes to just have fun and be a kid. So Sheri, you had a lot of growing up to do to be able to make it work with JP. So talk about that journey for a minute.
Yeah. So, and really we've both grown up significantly. He still has that core personality, but I have shared with him enough over the years of like, okay, when we're in, like, for example, when we're in a group and you don't kind of reach out or include me in something that will trigger insecurities and different things like that. So it's been really a process of understanding what you need and learning for yourself what you need. Spatially, I find this very interesting for someone that's more insecure. And I wouldn't even say insecure, someone that's an SC, they are introverted, but they still want to be included. And it's hard to include an introvert. And so physically, I will include my wife by placing her in a position at a table or around a campfire where she's in the circle. She doesn't have to interact, but just the very fact that she's physically in the circle makes her not feel left out. And it's such an easy move that we as high DI sometimes don't even think about it. We're like, we're just having fun. They're having fun. Oh, I haven't talked to my wife in 3 hours. What's she up to? And she's off in the corner crying about it, right? Well, Jeff, can I just say kudos to you for recognizing
no, thank you.
Small but big way you can
exactly.
I think ultimately at the end of the day, that's what it's about, is being able to be vulnerable with each other and share like, hey, this really hurt me, or this is how I'm feeling in this kind of situation. And then for the other person to remember that, which is huge, and help accommodate. So there's the individual growth that happens, of course, but then there's supporting and helping each other grow, which is hugely important.
Cool. I'll share my story, and then JP, you get to share one of yours.
Sure.
So I come from a family that processes everything. So like literally, like you guys were out at my house a couple weeks ago. Anyone that comes to the workshop, you spend the last day at my house. There's actually group workouts in the mornings, and then a lot of people that skip that will come to a dinner party. After the dinner party, the after-hour parties around the fire pit. We just hang out, have drinks, whatever, and sit around the fire. So why was I sharing all of this? Oh yeah. So I like to process things. So just like at that event, when we're just sitting there kind of processing the day, I'd ask for feedback. How'd the workshop go? This has just been one of my strategies my whole life. I like to process every little thing. And I remember going to like a family event or some type of an event with my wife. We either were dating or had just gotten married. And obviously every time we leave the house, we get in the car, it's time to process every single thing. And we didn't have a fight about it, but she had this moment where she's like, why do you always want to process everything? And I had never been challenged on it. My whole life, I just processed everything. And I was like, what do you mean? Why do I want to process everything? And maybe that's not a high DI personality trait. I don't know. But it's just who I was and who I still am and who I like to be. But for her, it felt trite, like high school, immature. Like, why do you have to process every little thing? For me, it was enjoyable to end an event and then talk about it for a while and not just end and move on to the next thing and not think about it. I'm sure that attribute has helped my businesses be successful, because every interaction I leave with any person, I'm like, how could I have done better? What did I do wrong? How could I improve? What did I do right? So it was the first time where I was like, wow, she's really different than me. Like, that's a big part of who I am, processing things and thinking through processes and talking to somebody about it. And so I had to decide, am I just going to make her suffer through the processing? Am I going to keep that in my own mind, or am I going to find someone else to process it with? And I think throughout the last 20 years, I've just done a little of all three. She'll still process things, but I can tell she's not excited to process it with me. And so I was able to self-actualize, like, okay, this isn't who she is. So like, there's a lot of times, and I bet a lot of people listening probably feel the same, where like your day ends and I get home and we'll have family dinner. So it'll be 7:00, and that's the time I'm now processing. So I get up at 5 a.m, work out, go to the office, have these calls, texts, emails all day long. It's just crazy. I sit down at family dinner, and we have 3 kids, my wife and I, and we're eating, and I'm literally looking off into space. My whole day is a reel playing through every meeting, every conversation. Like, subconsciously, it's just reeling through. And Andrea, my wife, will be like, what are you doing? Like, where are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm in my 11 a.m. meeting with this comment somebody made. I'm in my 1:30. Like, I'll tell people like exactly what am I process. So that's been an interesting journey. And then learning how to show up and actually be present at dinner and process later, or build time into my day for 30 minutes to meditate or process things, is how I was able to overcome that. All right, JP, how about you? Or do you have a comment, Sheri, on that? Are we going to have a counseling session for a minute? I'm scared to let you talk. Nope. Sheri can't talk. Go ahead. I'm just teasing you.
Which of your kids are more like you, and which of your kids are more like your wife?
My son is just like me from a DI standpoint. And I didn't do that just because he's a male and we're the same. He is just like me, built just like me, has the same personality traits. My daughter has my deep thinking. So she's very, very a deep thinker, but she's an introvert, which is really interesting. And my second daughter is really outgoing and fun, but is opposite of me when it comes to work ethic. She's all about fun. And so she's like a super high I. So we're all three kids are different.
That's awesome.
Which is interesting, right? Like, I never knew that going into having kids. Like, I thought they'd all be like me, but of course they're not going to turn out like you in every case. Thank goodness. They'll want to be just like their dad. Duh.
Exactly. Cool. Yeah. So, for me, Sheri, early on in our marriage, Sheri was very, she kind of just, was basically, I was the fun dad all the time. And I thought, as long as it's fun, raising kids is always going to be fun. And Sheri always had to be like the bad guy, the house parent all the time. Like, and so after a while, I started to build up resentment because there was times where I felt like my decisions were very being discounted. Mm-hmm. And this probably went on for probably the first 8 years of our marriage. And there was a pinnacle moment where Sheri felt like she didn't want to make all the decisions all the time either. And she felt like she was in a position where she was being the dad, basically. And so basically I had to come to grips with like, it's not all fun and games when you're, and so I had to get to a point where I had to start stepping up and making some of the tough decisions around the house. And she would be like, well, let's consult on this. And then, but ultimately she said, we want to take a more traditional approach from parenting, and that, if you're feeling strong about a decision, like I'm going to back you on that, and so that was really tough because I was like, okay, is this a psychology play here, or are you actually allowing me to make a decision? Right. And so those were some tough couple of years to try to get through that. And then of course, my wife is the analyzer. At the end of the day, I'm done.
Right.
And so Sheri wants to do the debriefing and, let's figure out how we can tease out all the value that we've got throughout the day. And she finds value in, sitting down and really debriefing every day. Yep. And
Sheri, why don't you just call me next time?
I know, right? We'll be debriefed.
Let's process this. So JP, it's funny when you said that about having fun. I'm the exact same dad. Like I'm the uncle. I'm not the dad, right? So my wife had to assume both those roles. And for those listening, how many of us choose to kind of let our spouse play both roles, and we're really stealing an opportunity to be a real true parent. If your kids always like you and they're always happy around you, you're probably not the best parent. So I have a daughter right now, Bella, who's our second daughter. She's in 7th grade. She's crying every night about a cell phone. She wants a cell phone, but we already made the decision. All 3 of our kids will get phones when they go into 8th grade. Society right now is buying phones in kindergarten. So we're pretty old school, like 7 years late to the show. She claims everyone has a phone except for her. And it makes me so happy to see her upset. Like, I don't need to be the nice guy. Like, it makes me like feel better about myself that my daughter's mad about it. And like, I don't feel bad at all. I have no empathy. I didn't have a phone until after college. Obviously, I'm born in 81, but like, I didn't have a phone. You don't need a phone. But in the kids' world, they do, because that's how they stay connected. And she has a device. She has an iPad with internet. So she's getting everything. Literally, she can have phone calls on her device, but it's not cool because she can't put it in her pocket. Like, she feels like a dork. Like, she's not going to bring the iPad to school. So anyways, that's my little experience. I get the fun role. And I think a lot of couples identify with one of those roles or the other. So to create the value for the listeners up to this point, if you guys have made it this far, I'm excited that you're still here with us. It's a weird podcast. It's interesting, and I like it, and I think it needs to be talked about more often. It's probably would have a position to be its own podcast, how to build an elite family or something like that. Mm-hmm. The family building podcast. I don't want to host that one. Sheri needs to start that one. So how do we, as like highly driven, doesn't matter if you're DIS or C, you're just super driven. People that are listening to this obviously are wanting to better themselves. We're looking at setting goals for next year for our business. I always tell people, start off with your why. What kind of life do you want to live? And then figure out your key performance indicators to generate the income to live the life. Most people say spend more time with family, go on trips, put money away for college. Like, we have all these activities that we name haphazardly, but we're not actually doing it day to day. You don't need to make $100,000 a year to go to the park with your son. Right? You don't need to make 75 grand a year to walk your dog. So like, if you have stuff on your vision board, like see the sun come up, that's going to be stuff you can build in. But for everyone that wants to have a stronger relationship with their significant other, or stronger relationship with their parents, stronger relationship with their kids, what would you give everyone listening, like as far as tips, maybe 2 or 3 winning strategies that you've seen in all of the counseling that you've been through?
Well, first of all, one of the books that I always recommend, and I feel like somebody, whether it was you or some of the other people at these trainings that, I've been a part of over the past couple months, have mentioned it, but it's the 5 love languages. I think that is pivotal, because basically what it does is the author, Dr. Gary Chapman, breaks down this idea that there are 5 different ways in which we receive or give love. And when you can understand what your own language is, or the language of your spouse, then you're able to actually be more efficient and effective in your attempts at showing affection. And so, so for example, 2 of them are, there's gifts, and there's acts of service. Now, if JP's love language was acts of service, meaning like if I would give him a back rub, or if I would cook him dinner, he would feel super loved by that. Well, maybe that's not mine. And if I'm like, oh, I love gifts, so I bring home, I bring home a meal one day or something like that, right, or do something like, he may not really pay much attention to that. And here I'm thinking, I'm like filling up his love bank, and he's like, and so it's really... It's really getting on the same page and understanding how to be more efficient in what you're actually doing.
Let's name them quick. I read this book. This is one of the books. I think we listened to it on tape or CD back in like 2005. And it was really funny. And I can talk about it in a second. But when we first got the book, I was looking at the intro, and it was saying the 5 love languages, and it went to list the 5 love languages. And I assumed each page would be one language, but they had listed all 5 on one page. And I said audibly to my wife, "Oh, that's my love language," assuming that all 5 was one language. And then it was going to be the next page, and there'd be 5 more things. And then the next page. So when I saw it, it's physical touch, quality time, acts of service, gifts, and what's the last one?
Affirmation. Words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation.
Yep.
Which, by the way, is my number 1.
Yeah.
That's why I joked with JP. I bet that's his number 1.
Yeah.
How great he is. You're so awesome, JP. Seriously. Thank you for being here.
You as well.
You're the best.
You have the best podcasts.
Yes.
Yes.
Your trainings are bar none.
Amazing. Coaching's amazing.
Number 1 in the country.
I mean, watching you flip over tires.
Oh my gosh.
It's just like, wow, like beast mode.
So I think you guys are ridiculous. So I do throw that thing around though.
Yeah, you do.
Right. So I think the point to take from the book, if you guys have read it or haven't read it, it's all about self-awareness. Too often we don't truly look at like, what does someone else actually want? We've been taught the golden rule, and I'll steal from Michael Mayer's book, 7 Levels of Communication. Have you guys read that book? He talks about the platinum rule, and the platinum rule is way better than the golden rule. Golden rule is do unto others as you'd like others to do unto you, which Sheri just shared with us is wrong. Because if you're a person that wants gifts and your significant other just keeps giving you words of affirmation, then because that's what they want and they're following the golden rule, it's not going to fill your love bank. But what the platinum rule is to do unto others as others would like done unto them. And it is a deep thought. Think about this as we service people. Don't do for them what you would want done for you, even though that seems like the right decision. Take it the next step further and self-actualize and ask yourself, what would they actually truly want? And you can learn a lot about a person you've never met by going to their social media. So I know what kind of gifts they like, what kind of movies they like, what kind of restaurants they'd want gift cards to based on their social media feeds, Instagram, Facebook, etc. And now I could do for them what they want, not what I want. And I think that comes up a lot in marriage. So like tonight, for example, like what does my wife need tonight? Even though normally, let's say it was words of affirmation, but maybe tonight she couldn't make dinner and would want some help with that. I need to take the 2 seconds to process, what does she need tonight? And I actually think all of us would have much better relationships with our employees, the people that we impact, our coaching clients, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, if we just would take 1 minute to say, what do they need right now? So when I interact with people every day, and every person I interact with, I take a moment to ask myself, what do they need? Like when they ask me something or engage with me, I think, what do they need from me? And when they say something, I'll think, what answer are they wanting me to give? What kind of engagement are they wanting to receive, instead of just doing the traditional?
And so what I hear you talking about with that, Jeff, is you're being super proactive in your relationships. One of the things I see a lot with entrepreneurs, I mean, being an entrepreneur, owning your own business, running a real estate team, whatever that is, it's like there's so many things coming at you all day, every day. And if you don't create the habit of taking a little bit of time, even if it's 1 minute, throughout the day to be intentional about what you're doing next, and being proactive in some of these relationships, completely you'll miss these opportunities. So It's about cultivating the habit of intentionality and being present and kind of having these thoughts throughout the day.
I love it. There was a story I heard at church a couple years ago, and they were talking about the biblical story that's called the Good Samaritan. Mm-hmm. A lot of people know the parable of the Good Samaritan. And the thing that I found really interesting about this particular parable is, and I'll ruin the story if I try to retell the story, so I'm not going to tell the story, but the idea of the story was that a lot of people were passing by this person that was injured on the ground. They were just laying on the street. So using a modern world example, someone's on the street hurt and no one's stopping. And this particular person that came up to this individual that's on the street, who was known to be an enemy of this person, and they decided to help them. But what was interesting about the story wasn't the fact that the person chose to help them, because any of us can do that. It was the fact that they had built a world in which they could help them. Financially, they could help them. They had the time to help them. And then they had the heart and the desire to do so. And so as all of us as leaders and husbands and wives and family members and et cetera, think about the world we're in, as you pointed out, the way that I treat other people as an entrepreneur. Have we created space in our world to not just always be on the defense and actually be able to be on the offense, so we can create true impact and influence in the lives of those in which we interact? Because if we're always so busy being the rock star, running from appointment to appointment, I'm so busy, we're never truly our best self for anyone. And I think that cultivates, that's pretty much an accumulation of everything that I feel like we need to bring to the table to make our relationships better. It's creating space literally for that relationship to grow.
Absolutely. And as an entrepreneur, one of the most important aspects to pay attention to as you're building yourself and your dreams is how much influence do you actually have in your life, whether it's influence in the home, but also influence at work, influence with friends, influence on social media. And one of the critical components of influence is a relationship. I mean, they have to like you, they have to trust you. And, of course, social media, that looks different than the guy down the street. Yep. But it still requires that relationship, and that relationship requires intentionality.
Yep. And let me propose this. And I always try to take it deeper and deeper, like in my mind, as I think through things. Everything I always have thought about, and this is a new revelation I'm having right now on the podcast, I've always thought about creating impact influence for other people. Who do I have relationships with where I've opened up a door because of the relationship with them to allow them to impact and influence me? I've been so focused on how do I create impact and influence for other people, but how am I getting impacted and influenced? And obviously, if I self-actualize and look at it, I could give you examples, but we have to be able to not only build that relationship to provide impact and influence, but also be willing to open those channels up with others who can create impact and influence for us, and be willing to take that and not be so proud that we're not willing to learn and change.
Yes. And to bring that into the marriage, there's a lot of marriage research on, what are the top 3 or the 5 or whatever things that make marriage work. And one of the things that we know reliably contributes to a healthy marriage is accepting influence from your spouse. And interestingly, women just naturally tend to accept more influence from their husband. And so it's actually more critical that the husbands be intentional and open to accepting influence from their wife. So that's extremely important in a healthy marriage.
Awesome. Well, share an example of what that might look like. Maybe this could be based on a past client of yours.
I'll let JP answer this one.
All right.
Then there have been an opportunity where you've accepted my influence.
Because that isn't easy. Like, I'll speak from my perspective of being 7th level and have all these businesses, and I'm the guy, right, making all the decisions, calling the shots, pop, 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 pop. And it's hard when my significant other wants to teach me. I have a very hard time with that. Like, I'm like, if you saw what I did today, I was so busy and I accomplished so much and I'm crushing it. And I come home and I didn't do a good job. Like, I don't even know an example. It could be washing. Like, I screwed up trying to take a stain out of a sweatshirt recently. I didn't scrub it enough or something. She wasn't even mad at me about it, but that's like an example where it's like, I didn't take her instruction. I just went and tried to do it really quick and messed it up. So I don't know if you've got something, JP, where like you weren't willing to learn. I think that's really good advice, Sheri. And I do agree for a healthy marriage to be able to take instruction both directions.
So this hits home pretty recently. Yes.
Earlier today.
Yeah, we're working through some things right now on accepting some influence. Since I've been running my real estate team for a couple of years, we've been slowly kind of trying to systematize our onboarding process. Mm-hmm. And Sheri has brought a lot of ideas to the table. And me being, high D, high I, trying to like take that and implement it like today has been a challenge. And so, we're working through some influences and challenges right now in our building our real estate team. And so
this is great.
Yep.
So and at the end of the day, like if there's one takeaway, like for me that I've learned over the years is that there are days that you don't like each other, but at the end of the day, you still got to love each other. And
not liking people is okay.
It is.
I mean, honestly, like I give everyone listening permission. Like I used to think like, oh, everything's always has to be perfect in every relationship, your agents, your employees, your direct reports, your parents, your kids, nothing's ever always perfect. If it's always perfect, then you're not living your best life. There always should be push and pull, but a healthy push and pull.
Yep.
Yeah.
So my solution to that sentiment of Sheri presenting all these solutions to all your problems and you not listening and implementing the changes, which is the problem for a lot of our listeners, is the book, The Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Because the solution probably is that JP's not going to do it, but JP can hire someone to do it, or JP can allow you to do it, Sheri. And this is why I brought in an SC in Kevin McGowan to come in to do all of our operations, because there was all these things I needed to be doing. I knew I needed to be doing them because I'm a deep thinker. I just didn't want to do them because I'm a high D. And so I was like, well, I don't have to do everything. And so this is the way I solve all my problems in my life. I'm like, oh, I'll have someone do it. Like, why would I do it? And that doesn't always work with leveraging like my relationship with my kids and my wife and,
right. Or
personal relationships. Can't leverage everything. Right.
Yeah.
And that goes down like the quality time. And, that one, you can't hire someone to raise your kids for you. So if you didn't know that, just putting that out there. But I think that there's probably space right now for JP to be more willing to hire someone or create some leveraged role in some way, or allow Sheri to step into a role that is necessary for that business to grow. And most importantly, for JP to step out of the rainmaker role, which a lot of people feel like they're stuck in. And one of the reasons people feel stuck in that role is they don't believe someone else can take on the responsibilities that they're working on. And the reason that truly people don't step out is they're not willing to put in the work and the effort that's necessary to find their replacement, train their replacement, and hold their replacement accountable. And so, perfect segue into Elite Real Estate Systems. We launched in 2017 organically. We actually started in 2014. A lot of people don't know this story. I'll share it today. We started organically because our real estate team went from 70 to 425 sides in 3 years, which was just insane growth in a very, very short amount of time. And that's the trajectory that I think that you guys are on right now. And the reason it grew so fast is I added agents. I stepped out of the buyer's side. I added training. I added accountability. I added leads. And then I just rinsed and repeated. And so we had people from all over the country wanting to come visit Omaha. And so we started a formal event called the team building workshop. And we charged $3,000 to come to it. And we had hundreds and hundreds of people come. Well, what do you think they all asked for when they left? There was no upsell. They'd come to my event and be like, hey, thanks for coming. See you later. High five. I'm running a real estate team. And they said, I need coaching. And we're like, we don't want to do coaching. Oh, that sounds horrible to have to coach someone. I don't want to coach anyone one-on-one. And so I was like, what if we did group coaching? Like, what if we threw cameras on our walls and just did team leader group coaching and did agent group coaching? So Elite Real Estate Systems coaching was born in 17, but the workshop started in 14, podcast started in 15. And now to this day, we're still doing workshops. So our next workshop's in January. I think it's the last week in January on the 24th or 25th. You can go find out more information about all upcoming events in 2021 on our website, eliterealestatesystems.com. Click on events. We also have a workshop in March. And then we have our huge event, the Team Building Summit. And I'm going to see if I can get Sheri to come and speak at the Team Building Summit to the entrepreneurs that are in the room to help us strengthen our relationships, our marriages, outside of just building our real estate businesses. Because I believe if we're living and leading the life of our dreams outside of our businesses, it will make our businesses grow and flourish, and we will be truly successful. So please, if you've never come out to a workshop, come out and join us. It's a 2.5 day event with happy hours and dinners and workouts and crazy high level content on building and scaling teams, as well as investing in real estate. And I know, Sheri, you just got back from a second one. You went to, I think, both the September and October team building workshops.
So we had one of those unique opportunities where we actually could find somebody to watch our kids. So we both got to go to the one in September, and it was so good. There was one full day on investing, and that's really where part of my passion is real estate investing. And we've been doing that for about 14 years. And then the second full day was all about the team building. And so it was really the perfect marriage, to use that word again, perfect marriage of curriculum. Mm-hmm. And so I loved it so much that I was like, okay, I'm going to go back next month, because we'd already worked on implementing some of the things. And I'm like, okay, now, I've got new barriers, new questions, new perspectives. So it was amazing. So, yeah, I mean,
awesome.
Yeah.
It's been great to host you guys. And I know you're also, as you mentioned earlier, Elite Real Estate Systems team leader clients. So it's $1,000 a month to be a team leader client. It gives you 4 Thursday sessions. They're 1 hour long, 30 minutes of content, 30 minutes of Q&A. And then it gives you unlimited seats for your agents to attend 8 hours of agent topics every month. So each week we do a Monday and a Wednesday. Mondays are topical. Wednesdays are dialogue training that goes along with the topic. So net total, how does that all add up? I think we're at 12 hours of content, and you get one-on-ones essentially in a group setting. You can ask questions. I'm on all the Thursday high-level calls. So we have a great community. I think we're almost up to 100 team leader clients right now. So it's a great group on Zoom. We usually have about 30 or 40 live. And then of course, if you miss the live, you can watch the recording. They're all in our library. They're all searchable too. There's tags on every single training. So you can go in and pick any topic, and it'll populate 2 or 3 different trainings on that topic. So to learn more about our Elite Real Estate Systems coaching product, go out to ersdemocall.com. You can actually set up a custom one-on-one call with our director of growth, Matt Peterson, or you just go out to the website. We have a fun little 2-minute cartoon we created that kind of explains the program. Just go to eliterealestatesystems.com, learn more on the team leader front. All right. How do we want to close this thing down? Referrals for Cheyenne. If someone wants to do one-on-one coaching with Dr. Sheri Fluellen, how can people get in touch with you guys?
So my website is drshericoaching.com. DRSHERI coaching.com. I particularly specialize in working with agents and real estate investors. I'm a high performance coach. It's a lot of what I do is just helping people implement the habits and the mindsets that are necessary to actually achieve what it is that you're working on achieving. And so it's a whole life approach. And yeah.
And if you want to get a hold of me, you can just email me, james.fluellen@gmail.com, or you can call or text 307-772-1184.
Dang, like a rock star, just throws his number out there. Hopefully that's your personal mobile. Text him at 2 a.m. If you guys are interested in EXP, I know there's a lot of people still wondering and wanting to know more. Please reach out to JP. He's been running model at EXP now for over 2 years, having a ton of success up in Cheyenne. He'd be a great person for you guys to reach out to. And then of course, sponsor you if you did decide to get into EXP.
Awesome.
All right, you guys. Well, you were great guests. This was an interesting event today. I would like to do more of this. I don't know if our audience members have noticed, but I'm talking a lot less about team building. We have hundreds of episodes. So if you guys want more team building episodes, start over and watch it all again. I want to talk about things that are changing people's lives. So obviously this plays into building a successful team, but I don't think that we focus enough on this stuff. It starts off, we all want to know how to sell real estate. We want to get more leads. We want to get more listings. We want to work more buyers. And then you're like, I don't want to do that anymore. Once you've done hundreds, if not thousands of transactions, I want to teach other people to do that. And then it's like, how do I help those other people live and lead their best life? The last book recommendation, if you're still listening, is The Dream Manager. Sheri, have you read that one yet?
No, but it's on my list ever since you told me about it. Mm-hmm.
It's an awesome book, you guys. Just like Sheri offers coaching to help anyone that needs help getting, navigating this thing we call life. It is the idea that as a leader, it's your responsibility to provide those that follow you with a dream manager. And you can call it a life coach, a mentor, an accountability manager, whatever you want to call it, but giving someone that person that's in their world every week that cares about them, talking about opening that door of relationships and allowing the impact and influence to come. Somebody that had a janitorial company based on this book had 700 employees and he was having retention issues. And the book talks about how he discovered that by creating a dream manager role inside of his organization to help the people that were working in that organization that were making $10 an hour become the best versions of themselves, even if that meant that they needed to leave his organization to go off and pursue other ventures. He recognized that his company grew, and it's that abundant mindset versus that scarcity mindset. So I would invite anyone listening up to this point to go and grab that book, The Dream Manager. Of course, we talked about the 5 love languages. We talked about the 5 dysfunctions of a team. We talked about the 7 levels of communication. So 4 great book recommendations. Would love to see you guys at an upcoming workshop in January or March. Would love to see you at the Team Building Summit. Sheri's going to be speaking, I hope. I'm not going to have to pay for your airlines, am I? Or your hotel?
Yeah, might be a little negotiation that happens.
About it. So really looking forward to that as well. And just hope everyone's safe and enjoying this crazy time with election season and the pandemic. I know it's crazy in everyone's worlds and no one really knows what's going to happen, but I promise you will wake up tomorrow. You will live to see another day. There will be houses to be sold. There will be houses to be acquired and rented out. The market's not going away. I think inflation's going to hit. Everyone that I know that's really smart in the real estate space believes all homes are going to go up in value. I heard yesterday, a good buddy of mine, Dustin Griffith, posted on his Facebook in Denver, Colorado, that they had no listing inventory for several days. There's no homes listed.
Oh my
in
God.
Denver.
That's
I don't know what the price point is, or it might be his county, but there's literally no houses. He's like, well, what do you do when you sell real estate? There's no real estate, right?
You want to list your home?
And that's why he's posted stuff. So my point is, like, we are in a pandemic, the worst in 100 years, and there's no houses for sale. Like, watch the patterns, you guys. There's logic that you can actually use as you deduce certain things in this world. There's no houses for sale in a pandemic. It should be a buyer's market. Everyone should be foreclosing right now if things were actually as horrible as they say. They are not as horrible as they say. A lot of people believe that inflation is going to go out the roof, meaning home values are going to go up exponentially. I think we'll see 3 to 5x over the next 10 years. That's my prediction. And that's why I buy houses with 90% of my disposable income. And I have a $12 million portfolio. My goal is to get it up to 100 million in the next 5 years. And if it 5X's, that's $500 million. So you guys can become billionaires that are listening, especially if you're young. Millionaire isn't cool anymore. If you watch The Social Network, I guess now it's $1 billion. So as big of a world as you can dream, you can live. And that's my wish upon everyone. So thank you guys for listening. Sheri, JP, you guys were awesome today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks
for having
Jeff.
us.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. See ya.